Hello and welcome to this episode of the Her Success podcast. We are the podcast that interviews highly successful and aspirational women with the view to inspiring the next generation of leaders within the tech and engineering space. The podcast is brought to you by Engtal. We are an engineering and technology recruitment firm. If you are in the market for a new position or you are looking to partner with a recruitment agency that truly cares about diversity, equity, and inclusion, please get in contact. Today, I'm delighted to interview Jamila Parham. Jamila is an award-winning STEM advocate and entrepreneur. Her day job, she is an information technology governance manager at Microsoft. She's also the founder of an organization called the Tech Unicorn. They're a STEM social media impact company created to amplify voices, advance marginalized communities, and inspire careers and entrepreneurship in STEM-related fields. She's the proud daughter of Chicago, local to us here. She has a fantastic energy, a fantastic story, and I think you guys will really like this episode. So without further ado, let's get the show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Her Success podcast. I am delighted to be joined today by Jamila Parham. Jamila is an award-winning STEM advocate, founder, speaker, and tech unicorn. She has a really varied background, currently working at Microsoft, but also has various other initiatives and things that she's involved in. I think a lot of the work that she does is really aligned with our mission here at Her Success. So Jamila, thank you so much for chatting with us and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Chris. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. First things first, I would love to just get an overview of your journey. So would you mind just telling us where you came from and your sort of career over the last few years?
Yeah, born and raised in Chicago, south side of Chicago. I grew up in Morgan Park, Beverly, went to Morgan Park. I'm a Chicago public school student, and there can be challenges there about access and resources. And so I always joke around about the extent of my computer programming was Mavis Beacon, learning how to type fast. And so it wasn't really anything around coding. And I ended up getting exposed to tech by playing video games with my brother, and he would battle me, and we would say whoever wins or loses would have to do the chores. And so I became really good at that. But it just really sparked the interest in technology and video gaming and computer graphics. And so I wanted to know, like, was there a future or is there an opportunity or pathway to pursue that? So I attended DePaul University. I stayed in Chicago. Go Blue Demons. So stay local. It was a wonderful, I love DePaul, proud alumni. And so I attended their computer graphics and animation program. And when I went there, I didn't see many reflections of myself. I didn't see many Black women. I didn't see many women, period, in a lot of the coding, graphics, and special effects classes. And so it was very challenging to, one, not see many reflections of yourself, and two, to get the curriculum and try to figure out, okay, how the heck do I do this? And so I spent a lot of time in like tutoring, trying to nail down those concepts. And so it was really a challenge. And then it was just something that I saw as I even navigated career-wise and even going through college and graduating, that there were not many Black women and seeing representation when it came to technology. And so that even represented itself when I went for my first job in technology, and I walked in, it looked like a frat house. I mean, like a bros club. And I'm like, oh my God, like, am I joining a fraternity here? And so that was a little bit discouraging for me. And so I wanted to speak up about it. And I just said, hey, how can we get more representation? How can we create more rooms where everyone feels welcomed and they see reflections of themselves? And so I just started to kind of talk to people on campus, go to networking events, and I found out that it was really some work to be done there. And so the name of my company is the Tech Unicorn. And so a lot of folks ask, where did you get the name from? I know it can have many meanings, but it's about being in those spaces and really being, whatever background you're from, not seeing representation of yourself. And so I was graciously enough able to climb the ladder, become a tech lead, and I would walk in a room and they would say, hey, we're waiting on a tech lead. And I'm like, well, that's me. And they're like, wow, it's cool. We haven't seen many Black women in tech. You're like a unicorn. And I'm like, hey, let's roll with that. Like, there's a lot of folks who are having that similar experience of there were many barriers in the way. You had to really focus and overcome that adversity to excel in these industries. And it's magical. It's something to be celebrated. And so I created the Tech Unicorn because a lot of folks have that same story. A lot of Black and Brown communities, underrepresented communities, like the South and West sides of Chicago, not just Chicago, but all over the United States and the world, where there are students from these demographics that want to pursue these careers, but don't necessarily have the training tools, access, and opportunities. And so that has put me on the journey of being an ecosystem builder, being a daughter of Chicago, a voice of the community, and just finding something that I'm very passionate about, which is being a STEM advocate.
Nice, love that. And a lot of our guests will be listening rather than watching, but if you are watching, you can see, Jamila has unicorns behind her as well, which I love. And it's interesting. My wife is an attorney, and she has similar situations where someone will walk into a room and say, "When's the attorney getting here?" Assuming that she's the receptionist or something like that, and she's like, "Yeah, I'm here." So yeah, could completely see that. Tell me a little bit then about the Tech Unicorn. You talked a little bit about what the purpose was behind it when you launched 7.5 years ago. What kind of things do you guys do on a monthly basis to try and achieve some of those things?
Absolutely. So I've been fortunate enough to employ interns, some of our youth, to mentor them one-on-one, use my personal network to get them opportunities and internships, and really take the time to figure out what they're trying to do and then setting them on a path to get there. So mentorship is definitely a pillar of what we do at the Tech Unicorn. Another part of that is representation matters, right? And so we work really closely with universities and schools. And so I've had the privilege of speaking at University of Arizona. Also, DePaul University has invited me in. And so there's a lot of programs, engineering programs, where they're seeing a lack of diversity or students pursuing those careers. And so you want to give a voice to that. And so keynote speeches and workshops are another piece of that. We've also done some diversity and inclusion consulting with Pearson. And so that was a huge accomplishment for the Tech Unicorn last year. So we believe in workshops and making sure that we give employees the tools to make sure that their workplaces are inclusive as well. So I think we are really advocating and attacking this on all fronts. I think a part of it is early access to tools. And so you want to make sure that you spark it early with students and to create that vision, and they can decide what STEM is cool or I want nothing to do with it, but at least that it's an opportunity there. So in regards to the youth, that engagement is very critical for us as well. In the previous year, we worked with Blue Lacuna right here in Chicago in partnership with Microsoft, and we did a cybersecurity workshop with Minecraft. And so the funny story about that is I don't play Minecraft as much, so I stayed up to like 3 in the morning getting this curriculum together for this workshop. And I'm like, oh, this is a good 1 hour workshop. And I came in and showed the students what to do, and they were done in 10 minutes. And I'm like, oh, crap, what are we going to do for the rest of this workshop?
Yeah.
It just shows how brilliant they are and a lot of the progress that we're making. And so it focused more on the United States is at a deficit when it comes to information security and protecting data as far as talent. And so in order to prepare that next workforce, you have to spark that interest and expose them early to let them know about that. And so that workshop was truly successful because they were like, we didn't know anything about information security. We learned about being safe online as far as gaming. There's chat areas and rooms that students are in, and we're just talking to them about not sharing information, being safe online, and how you can make that a career. And so those are some of the things that we are focused on at the Tech Unicorn.
Nice. Yeah, I love it. I think that the early access part is absolutely critical. We, as I'm sure a lot of our guys know, have a charity called Diversify the Future, as we talked about earlier. And I think one of the challenges with diversity in the STEM world is that there's just such a small amount of talent that is diverse in those areas. So a lot of the companies, they want diverse talent. Like every client that we work with says, yeah, if you can find me a diverse engineer, I will bite your arm off. However, the challenge is only 15% of the industry is diverse. So everyone is competing for the same 15% of talent. So you're not actually going to solve that issue until you increase the amount of people coming into STEM. So I completely agree. I think approaching it at that grassroots level, it's like, how can we get people more access to this stuff earlier? So like you said, like maybe STEM isn't for them, but at least they know this is an option. if you wanted to go down this road, this is what it would look like. If you do that, that's how I think you truly influence the DEI, because you'll increase the funnel of people coming into the industry.
Absolutely.
At the Tech Unicorn, your mission fundamentally is to close the opportunity gap in STEM. You mentioned you've done some consulting work. If you were to give advice to a company looking to do that, so maybe they're a tech organization and they are trying to close that opportunity gap, what advice would you give a company like that?
I would say there's a couple fronts: engagement early on and onboarding talent, and also retention. As far as engagement with organizations, there is some great work being done as far as curating the workforce and getting underrepresented groups the talent and training required to get opportunities at organizations. And so one that comes to top of mind is IC Stars, which is doing great work as far as curating tech talent for the future. And so I think partnering with organizations like that really increase candidate base, right? And so when you have those opportunities, you can engage in a diverse workforce. The second part of that is retention, right? The culture of your organization. How are you celebrating and elevating everyone, especially maybe some groups that are marginalized or underrepresented, especially having ERGs or celebrating all cultures and making sure that you retain the talent as far as elevation of skills, promotions, and training. So I think it's one thing to engage and hire the talent, but retaining is another piece of it. And I think that has to be also two fronts that organizations focus on.
Yeah, no, 100%. Because it can be a little bit of a slippery slope. And I think we've had a couple of guests on here that said a very similar thing. Companies will have a big push on diverse hiring, and they'll set all these targets and they'll bring diverse talent into the organization, but then the retention rates are incredibly low. And then 12 months down the road, they're back to square one again because they didn't have those mechanisms in place to retain that talent and create a working culture that was able to do that. Switching gears a little bit, I noticed that last month you were named as one of the top 20 Black women entrepreneurs to watch for 2024. So congrats, awesome award. Tell me a little bit about what led to that award. And then from an entrepreneurial perspective, what you hope to achieve in 2024.
Yeah, I mean, I was so grateful to receive that, and the fact that the work that the Tech Unicorn is doing is being recognized, not just here in Chicago, but across the US and hopefully across the world. So when I received that honor, it really was, I'm always shocked, but I feel that I'm doing great and important work. And so I think the consistency of what the Tech Unicorn has been able to do in the communities and across the US is getting a little bit of attention as far as what we've been doing as far as positive impacts and role models. And so being founded in 2016, we've been doing this for a long time. And I think that's enough for a couple of set of eyes to be watching what we're doing. And so I think a lot of folks are excited to see what we are going to do next. And I'm super excited for the future. I think what we have coming up is working and partnering with a lot of organizations. Right now, we're working really closely with DePaul University, my alma mater. We did do a workshop. Actually, it was a panel last year about women entrepreneurs. And we got an array of women that are leading engineering companies and all type of technology firms. And it was a real raw conversation. It was a feel good, but it was a reality check too. Like, here are the things that we're facing. Here's what we need to do. And this is where we all need to band together because we're falling behind. I've been to a lot of panels where, oh, you feel good and everyone's cheerleading, but someone has to give the state of the state, right? And we have to realize the work that we have to do is great what we've accomplished, but we want to always be looking ahead. So what I'm excited about is to curate more programming like that, safe spaces for young students and women to come discuss some of the barriers that they're facing, to get inspiration and success stories from accessible role models. There's a two-sided thing with the internet, which is great. Everyone has access and platforms, but I'm always big on accessibility as far as like role models, someone you can meet at an event or pick up the phone. Even though everyone seems accessible, it doesn't mean that you can just talk to them and get information and have one-on-one. So I think those in-person events, post-COVID, thank goodness, we can all get together in person and feel energy in the room, like feel the energy of support. So I think that's the focus of more in-person impact and ongoing into the future.
for diversity, equity, and from every underrepresented placement made to
Yeah, I mean, I do agree. I think a lot of the more impactful events are the ones like that where, cheerleading is great, and I think it's very important to pick people up and make people feel good. But I think when you really sit around the table and have the honest conversations about some of the challenges people are facing and try and tackle some of those, that's where you can have real impact. And one of the ladies that we interviewed a month or so ago, she was an investor, and she was very involved in a lot of kind of like seed level startups within the life science industry. And she was saying how less than 10% of investment in life sciences goes to women-run businesses. And when you look at diverse women-run businesses, less than 1%. So and it was even as far as the questions that investment firms asked female entrepreneurs versus male entrepreneurs were completely different, because all the screening and stuff that they went through was very different. So that they had a really impactful round table where they talked about how they can shine more light on this and get more visibility and really elevate female entrepreneurs that are looking for investment and things like that. So I think it's a super important topic.
And one more thing to that, Chris, before we shift, having that round table was really important. And so one of the shocking moments that came up in our event was one of our panelists said that, she went into an investment meeting and a pitch meeting, and there were conversations like of reality. And she mentioned that she had a business manager that was a man, but for the sake of that meeting, he had to pose as the founder or a co-founder to go in, because they felt that the messaging from a man would be more impactful as far as receiving funding versus a woman going in and leading and pitching for funding. And it's unfortunate to hear that story, but those were one of the realities and the stories that had to be shared of like, this is what we're facing. It's not okay, but this is what a lot of women had to go through in the past. And so I think it really puts into perspective of like the work that is ahead of us.
Yeah, exactly. You've got to be honest about where things are at now. Otherwise, how can you really push forward? 100%. One of my good friends runs a DEI consulting firm, essentially. And she was the one that told me about the different questions that are asked. And I think a lot of the time with female investors, it's a lot more personal. They ask things like, do you have the personal life set up in order to be successful? If it was a male, those things are just taken for granted. We would never be asked those questions. And it's something that, again, I hadn't even really thought of. I think shining a light on some of this stuff is absolutely critical. You mentioned early in your career, one of the challenges you had was almost not having those role models, coming into an environment that looked more like a frat house and not having people that look the same as you in your early career. I think we've taken probably some steps in the right direction as well, but still a long way to go. And if you were to give advice to someone facing a similar thing, so maybe they're a 2024 grad, maybe a Black female that is probably going to go into banking or law or an industry that is predominantly white, what advice do you think you would give that individual?
Yeah, I think it feels wonderful to look back and to give this advice after going so far on my journey. I know I have a lot further to go, but I think it's important, even when you're navigating corporate America, or even if you're an entrepreneur or you're pitching your business, you really have to curate your community, your support system, because every room that you walk in may not necessarily be your support system, right? Or the job that you walk in every day may not be that support system. So I think there's so many different synergy groups that you can lean on and get resources from that can provide that mentorship and support, so that when you do walk in that room, you have everything you need to flourish, despite what might be ahead of you, excuse me. But I think that it can be challenging. You're going to face those rooms where you're spoken over. I've encountered that even in meetings where you say one idea, then a person says a little bit differently. It's like celebrated. And so it's really about finding your voice. But what I've been grateful for is not only my community outside of some of these rooms, like some of the synergy groups or volunteer groups or professional development groups, sororities, and things like that I've curated. There have been allies that have been in these spaces that have spoken up for me, or they've blown the whistle and they said, hey, this is not right, or either Jamila has something to say, or everyone hold on. I think allies as well, recognizing the challenges that someone else may be facing and speaking up and using their platform is important as well. I think everyone has a platform to use to speak up for others, to amplify their ideas, to push them forward for opportunities to celebrate their work. So I think that that's something that's pretty powerful, and I think we all can practice that. And so that's what's been something that has helped me on my path. And so I continue to do that. I recommend that. I also recommend that anyone that is facing those challenges to create a roster or a brag folder of everything that you accomplished, because sometimes when you walk in a room and you look around and you can forget a lot of things that you have accomplished, which you have that seat at the table, right? And so make sure you keep track of everything you accomplish in a brag folder or somewhere that can be celebrated, so that you can look back and see how far you've come and what you've overcome, and that yes, you deserve to be there and you do belong to be there.
Yeah, I think that's awesome advice, and really tangible advice that I think someone listening to this can take from that. Like, I think imposter syndrome affects everyone. I think it's particularly prevalent in diverse communities. And I think having, again, like, just that awareness of where you've come from, what you've done, your achievements, and that you deserve the seat at the table, I think is absolutely critical. And I think as well, one of the things that I've learned just from doing this Her Success podcast over the last year or so is there are a lot of challenges that people are facing in this world. And one of the fantastic things that you touched on there is such a passionate community of people that are allies and that are backing people that are diverse, and I think that there are so many people that I've interviewed and I've spoken to that again are just so passionate about this kind of thing. I think to your point, building your roster of mentors, building your roster of allies, and those people are absolutely out there. And there's a lot of people that are really passionate about that topic. And I think as well, just final point that I just pick up on that is, you mentioned about people that have said, Jamila's had a good point, and I think as a leader, that's such a critical skill, being able to amplify people's voices, be able to sit in a room and understand that, okay, this person is probably the loudest person in the room. They're going to come up with a bunch of ideas. This person here, maybe they're in the middle, and this person is going to be the quietest. It doesn't mean that the quietest person has the worst ideas. Like, sometimes it is the complete opposite of that. And I think as a leader, if you're cognizant of that and you're able to navigate those conversations and say, okay, let's pass over to this individual now. What do you think about this? I think it really helps the flow of the conversation and helps it not be dominated by just simply the loudest person in the room.
Exactly.
Because we've all been there. On your LinkedIn, you say, I've dedicated much of my life to giving back to the community and teaming up with amazing organizations around the world. To talk to us about some of the most rewarding initiatives that you've been part of, or any of the real exciting organizations that you partnered with.
Yeah, definitely. I've been doing this before I even formally did the work under the Tech Unicorn. And so creating the path or just pursuing STEM was something that basically is in my DNA. And so I was really excited about being involved with Black Girl Ventures. And that focuses on getting Black women funding for their businesses and startups at various stages. And so that was really a game changer for the Tech Unicorn. And we placed third in our very first pitch competition. And so that was a huge accomplishment for us in partnering with that. And so I also know that as far as DePaul University, we have upcoming programming with them to actually speak with some students from the UK. And so we'll be sharing about being in the community of STEM and kind of having like a little bit of a fireside chat for that. So that's something that's coming up. And then also engaging in workshops with the youth. We have that coming up later this year, and also continuing to partner with universities.
I love it. Well, yeah, you'll have to definitely let me know how that goes. Good to see, fellow Brits on the map. We're almost out of time now, so this will be my last question. Obviously, you're doing a ton of things. You obviously have a day job at Microsoft, and then also the work that you do with the Tech Unicorn, as well as some other projects. Tell me something that you're really excited about for the future.
Yeah, like I said, tech is in the DNA. We have the age of AI that is happening with ChatGPT and Copilot, and I think it's very exciting. And so I think the next phase is technology is always evolving and it can evolve really fast. And so some of my background is in civic tech. And so we want to make sure that technology is something that is to be useful and not harmful. And so there's a lot of logic that's going into it. And we want to make sure that we hold AI accountable as far as logic and bias, potentially being coded in some of that logic. And so I think the next front is really making sure artificial intelligence is inclusive of underrepresented and undervalued communities as well, just to make sure that everyone is accounted for in the logic. And so I think that looking forward, we want to do a little bit more with gov tech policy and just to make sure that all communities are included in the conversation.
Yeah, I think AI is obviously an absolutely amazing tool, but it will be what we make it, and we can use it for good. Like, I think there's a huge opportunity to remove bias and just to use AI for some of the good work that you do. But to your point, if we allow our own biases and things like that to enter into the logic, then it would have the opposite effect.
Yes. Yes.
Awesome. Well, Jamila, thank you so much. That's all we have time for today. As I said at the start of the show, I think the work that you do aligns so well with kind of what we're doing and her success. I'm sure all of our listeners will have really enjoyed this. As always, Jamila's contact details will be on the advert, like her LinkedIn profile. So I'm sure she would not mind anyone reaching out, and if they want to learn a bit more about the Tech Unicorn. But thank you so much. I've really enjoyed this conversation. I think we've covered some really, really critical topics.
Thank you so much, Chris. Thanks for having me here today.
Awesome. Well, I hope everyone enjoyed this show. Please dial in next week, and our next episode will be live.
Listening to today's Her. Who can benefit from. Don't forget to